Welcome to Slash Forward. In this episode, we're going to once again embrace other cultures with the 2006 Korean horror film, The Host. If you've ever eaten fish and wondered, what if fish eat you? Subscribe to the channel. Let's get to it. We open in a mortuary at a U.S. Army camp. The supervising officer is of the time to lean, time to clean variety. His hatred of dust even extends to the contents of any dusty containers, causing him to behave as a total doucher and give an order to empty many bottles of formaldehyde into a drain that empties into the nearby Han River. The real kicker is that the dusty bottles are still here afterward. So what was the point? We then flash forward to 2006. A man on the edge notices a disturbance below the surface of the water, but he's going in either way. We then transition to Gong-do, sleeping at his father's food stand, passing the time until he can see his daughter, Hyun-soo, again. They have plans to watch his sister Namju's archery competition on television, but he's interrupted from this to correct a customer's order, which he wanders out to deliver. Everyone seems to be staring at and trying to identify a strange object hanging from the bridge, so he joins in on the fun game. But before he can venture a guess, the big slippery ball sack slides into the water. The observers then engage in the time-honored tradition of chucking crap at it until it swims off. They're then surprised to find it galloping at them from the sidewalk, going into full berserker mode and thrashing about, chucking them into the water. As the archery competition wraps up, Hyun-soo emerges only to get caught up in the rushing mob. But Gong-do loses her in the confusion and she's taken by the creature. Then the area is cordoned off and taken over by the military. Later at the evacuation barracks, Namju arrives and submits her award to Hyun-soo's memorial, even though it's only a bronze. And her uncle Nam-il also arrives to pay his respects, resulting, as is so often the case, in a family tumble. They've barely finished this tradition before the authorities roll in to delouse the crowd and herd them into buses like cattle. On their way, the news informs us they suspect a virus has been unleashed by the creature, and only special forces trained in biological warfare are active in these search and cleanup efforts. The family reunites at the quarantine hospital where they plan additional tests for Gong-do having come in direct contact with the creature, and despite explicit orders to the contrary, he indulges in a little can of cartilage after hours. His fine treat is interrupted by a call from Hyun-soo, talking about being in a large sewer somewhere and obviously confirming that she's still alive. The next morning, they have a hard time convincing the authorities that their story is true, so they make other arrangements, and soon they're casually running at full speed through the hospital, meeting with their getaway van in the parking garage. They come up a little short on their black market invoice, but manage to seal the deal and walk away with a fumigation van stocked with weapons. From here, they find they can enter the restricted zone with little effort and only minor bribery, and with that, they begin their work, fumigating and checking sewers. Meanwhile, we see Hyun-soo keeping a low profile in the monster's pit, hoping it will deposit a body with something functional for her to use. On its return, she's given a pit buddy in young Si-ju. As they get acquainted, her family is back at the food stand resting up when Gong-do notices the monster is just outside, shawshanking in the rain. When they attract its attention, it overturns the trailer, but a headshot puts it down. Unfortunately, a second headshot wakes it back up again, and despite their weapons being of little use, Grandpa decides to pursue the kill, and is ultimately ragdolled by the beast. Gong-do is unable to leave him, resulting in his subsequent capture. With the situation out of control, there's now the risk of US forces deploying the Agent Yellow Protocol, a chemical solution that's tentatively described as safe. We then move on to Nam-il, connecting with an old activist contact who now works for a telecom company and can trace Hyun-soo's prior call. As they work, we see this is just a ploy for some reward money. Luckily, Nam-il is able to get the coordinates and is also a very talented escapist, making it as far as the bottom of a nearby ravine before texting the intel to Namju and passing out. Namju later gets the text and tells the info to Gong-do before facing down the monster and getting knocked into a narrow, deep crevasse. Gong-do, as a result, asks for a brief recess to go run some errands, but unfortunately, it's therapy time, and they need to sample his tissues. Just in time, the CDC arrives. He asks about Gong-do's daughter, seemingly with genuine concern, but then confirms this was just a test, and diagnoses him as being riddled with dementia. He confides that they've discovered delirium from misinformation to be the true viral culprit here, as autopsies of the victims have shown no virus presence. Of course, the language barrier here acts as a natural veil of silence for this secret information.
No 바이러스가 없구나.
So now it's lobotomy time. Meanwhile, the kids pass the time by fantasizing about eating and fashioning a grappling hook. But they discover that they didn't give it enough length. Then the monster returns, but this time just to deliver some trinkets. Back at the hospital, Gong-do plays lobotomy patient, but he's just teasing, and he manages to use the threat of his presumably tainted blood to get to an ambulance and escape. Elsewhere, Nam-il wakes up and scores a guide to the bridge, making some combustibles along the way. Hyun-soo and Si-ju wake up and find the creature sleeping soundly. She endeavors to go for help by using using the monster's back as a springboard to the rope. But she doesn't end up in quite the position she had hoped as it wakes up and comes after them. Gongdu arrives shortly after, seeing that his daughter has left, and he chases the monster past Namju's position, resulting in all the siblings converging on the bridge at around the same time. The monster beelines for the Agent Yellow protesters, and right as it makes landfall, they dump out the neurotoxin. This stuns it and allows Gongdu to get shoulder deep in that esophagus and pull out the kids. Namil starts chucking cocktails at it, but runs out as it delights in the petrol shower. So Namju steps up, jabbing some flaming debris on her arrow and lighting up. Gongdu then manages to prevent it from making it to the water, resulting in its eventual expiration. In the aftermath, the homeless Siju wakes up, but Hyunsu does not. In wintertime, we see Gongdu manning the food stand, ever watchful of the water's edge. He's taken in Siju, who's now living his ideal life, spent with an abundance of food and eating it in toasty comfort. Feel free to check out my website to support the channel through donations or merch. Donations earn you a link to an uncensored review of Toby Hooper's Life Force, and the merch is a combination of logo apparel and general horror-themed items. And a huge thanks to my donators memorialized in the Hall of Headshots. The Host was a very interesting and intricate movie. While you may get the general idea of what's going on from this video, it's also full of dry humor and nuanced cultural subtext. It's worth multiple full watches to take it all in. If you enjoyed the video, I'd love for you to become a part of the channel by subscribing. Thanks for watching.